Hello, welcome to this overview of the Export Market Development Grant overview developed by ESS BIZTOOls. I'm Peter Towers. Thank you for your support of ESS BIZTOOls, and hopefully you'll be able to use this grant product package to assist your clients who are undertaking export activities. So what is this grant? The Australian government has a grant to assist SME exporters and some Australian-based businesses offering services to overseas residents when they visit Australia. Applicants must have an Australian business number. Applicants could be an individual, a company, an association, a partnership, a trust, all of which must have a very strong Australian connection, as explained there on the slides. So what is this grant? First of all, your client needs to have been in business with that same ABN for 2 years. So there's minimum turnovers required based on the 2023-24 financial accounts. For Tier 1, which we'll explain what the tiers mean in a moment, the minimum turnover is $100,000. Now, this is income, so it could be partly export, partly local sales, doesn't matter. It's the sales is 100,000. But Tier 2 companies, it's 500,000, and for Tier 3, it's $1 million. The maximum turnover that a business can have in 23-24 is $20 million. And the applicant must have the capacity to spend at least $20,000 per financial year of their own money on their proposed marketing and promotional activities. $20,000, and you need in the application to be able to identify where the client's going to get that money from. Hopefully they've got a very strong cash flow, and that is very obvious where the money would be coming from. But some people, a more detailed explanation will probably have to be given. Applicants must have a high-quality plan to market for marketing or promoting eligible products in a foreign country, which is specific to their business and the tier that they're applying for. And we're going to look at that in a bit more detail shortly. So when does the grant open? It opens at 10 a.m. on Tuesday, the 12th of November. That's AEDT time. So in Sydney, Melbourne, it opens on the 12th of November. And it opens not in an office, but on the internet, because all applications have to be submitted via the internet. Round 4 is what it's known as, because it's round 4 of the new way of handling the Export Market Development Grant, which commenced a few years ago. Round 4 will close when the funding has been fully allocated, with applications assessed in the order they are received. Now, what that means, if there's a very late application, it's probably got no chance of getting funded. So as close as you can to the 12th of November, you need to be trying to lodge these applications. And we've been reminding you of this in Members Alert and in articles in Business Plus for the last couple of months. So hopefully you've identified the clients that you think you can help with the Export Market Development Grant, and you're able to do so. And we have updated the material within ESS BIZTOOls that you can go on to use to help you in this application process. But this time, Austrade have decided that this will be for 2 years. So we're looking at the applications going in on the 12th of November or thereafter for 2025-26 and also 2026-27. So there's a bit to think about. Now, the objectives of the Export Market Development Grant are to support SMEs to become exporters. And this is a rather unique grant program in Australia because it's not restricted to companies. It's any type of SME entity with turnover under $20 million, but obviously those minimum turnover levels that we talked a little bit earlier based on their tiers. To support existing exporters to expand their export activities. and to support the supply of eligible services in Australia to foreign persons. And we're going to talk about that a little bit later. Assistance available. An SME may be eligible to apply for a grant in one of the 3 tiers of support that are available. So in Tier 1 applicants, they must be ready for export or ready to start exporting or promoting eligible products to foreign markets for the first time. But there's the necessity for Tier 1 applicants to be able to prove that they understand exporting, and we'll come to that shortly also. And they must not have exported before. So in Tier 1, the applicants need to have appropriate skills in marketing products in a foreign country, demonstrated by providing evidence of either successfully completing a recognised export training activity, and they're listed on Go Global Tool Kit website, or an approved test by Austrade for assessing export capacity and knowledge. So if your clients haven't really undertaken any exporting in the past, I think they should undertake a recognised export training activity, so that if they're asked questions by Austrade, they should be able to respond appropriately. The cost of getting that qualification is a legitimate expense in the Export Market Development Grant Fund allocation, so they can apply for it. Now, the minimum grant for Tier 1 is $20,000 and the maximum is $30,000. But remember, in this grant round, we're applying for 2 years, so this business could be applying for $60,000 worth of government funding. And please make sure you stress to your clients they have to match whatever the government contribution is. And they have to be able to identify where that contribution that they're making is going to come from. So let's now look at Tier 2. Now, Tier 2 applicants have been around a little bit longer. Normally, they must be exporting within existing markets. So they're already out there exporting. And they're businesses who are exporting and promoting eligible products and seeking to expand export promotion activity for eligible products. So they're wanting to scale it up a bit. The applicant must demonstrate that they have established export revenue commensurate with the size of their business and the value of their product or service. I can't find anything that really indicates, pardon me, how Austrade's going to assess that, but you need, and in the working papers which we've supplied within this product package on Export Market Development Grant, we've got a calculation there for you to do. What's the total turnover? What was their export sales? What was the percentage achieved? And you need to make sure that there is a percentage, because these people are supposed to have already been exporting, and hopefully that's going to be acceptable to Austrade. And what they're doing is expanding their marketing and promotional activities. And this means, according to the guidelines, they must be doing more than they have done previously, because this grant is for new expanding activities. So they might be going to the same markets or similar markets, but they're looking to put more oomph into it. They're going to expand their activities. Now, the minimum grant is $20,000, same as for Tier 1, but the maximum grant in Tier 2 is $50,000. So obviously in this 2 financial year grant application, we're looking at $100,000 maximum. Now, Tier 3 is the big one. These applicants must be exporting or planning to export to new markets. So these people are already established, and Austrade is now trying to move them up the scale a bit. Eligible exporters who are exporting eligible products or promoting and seeking to expand export promotion activity. And they're going to make a strategic shift, key words, strategic shift in the marketing or promotion of eligible products in a foreign country. Strategic shift. Let's look at what that might mean. The objective is to support SMEs to diversify, which is described as the strategic shift to their export activities, to new markets that align with their export diversification plan. We're going to talk about the plan shortly. Very important. And for this opportunity, the export promotional activity must focus on key markets. Now, these are markets that the government via Austrade has identified. That these are the markets that they're wanting tier 3 businesses to be undertaking the activities to get that funding of $80,000 per annum maximum from the government. So applicants may be eligible for a tier 3 grant if they meet all eligibility criteria and they're exporting eligible products demonstrated by export revenue. The minimum grant amount is $20,000, but the maximum is $80,000. So these companies could, these businesses, wrong word. They could be companies, but they also could be a sole trader or a partnership or a trust. So I've been trying to avoid saying companies and saying SMEs. They can be anything. So the maximum grant is $80,000 per financial year. So based on the 2 financial years being bundled together by Austrade, that's $160,000 of government money they may be able to source. Applicants can only receive a total of $770,000 under this program in total, but not in 1 year. Now, businesses don't have to start at tier 1 and then progress to tier 2 and then to tier 3, as what you might think. It sounds pretty obvious to me that's what would happen, but that's not the case. They can apply for any grant tier at any time, depending on what their business is proposing to do. And applicants can only apply for 1 tier per round. A word of warning, if your client is got the reasons why they want to apply for tier 3, make sure they understand exporting activities and undertake the course first. Because if they were in tier 1, they must have done it. There seems to be an assumption that by the time people get to tier 3, they will understand exporting. And I think that's reasonable, but just in case the bureaucracy plays some funny games on that, make sure your client, if they're making a tier 3 application as their initial involvement in the export market development grant, that they really do understand the intricacies of exporting. They've done the course. Now, grant years, they can receive this funding of $770,000 over 8 financial years, but they do not need to be consecutive. They can have a gap every so often. It's a bit like having a student year gap, isn't it? They can have a gap. They might want to refresh their ideas, develop some new products and services. They do their research and development. They do that work, and then they're ready for the market again. And if they are undertaking research and development, don't forget that if they're a company, they could apply for the research and development tax rebate, which is very important for them. Now, the plan to market. The SME applicant is required to submit a plan to market that is unique to the business and directly relates to the planned export promotional activities. It should be high quality, and all of the questions asked in the application form must be completed with sufficient detail. This is important because it gets emphasised time and time again when you read the Austrade information. So it must contain details about the eligible products that the business is going to sell, their proposed export promotional activity, details of the markets that they're identifying, and the business goals that the SME is seeking to achieve through the marketing. So it requires your client to sit down and do some thinking about these questions. It shows the details of how the SME will measure export success and what the marketing and promotional budget for the eligible markets is for the relevant grant years, and details about previous export marketing and promotional activities that the SME has undertaken. So your client can't sit back and say, oh, they know all that. We said all that to them last year. They want you to re-present it. This is what we did last year. This is what we're going to do in this next 2 years. But the plan to market needs to be something similar to a business plan, says the Austrade documentation. So it needs to be a living business management document for the export activities. And it needs to be designed in such a way that it can be adapted for changes, just like a business plan should be. But it must be a unique document for the applicant, not a copy of a document prepared for another client or another organisation. Again, this is an issue that Austrade has specified in the guidelines. So it's going to require, with a lot of your clients, I suspect, sitting down and talking to them and clearly understand, just like the process to prepare a business plan. It won't get written in 5 minutes. Now, the eligible markets are all overseas markets, except about 4. And unfortunately, one of them is New Zealand. But just because they're our close neighbours, we treat them like our first cousins. And Australia and the Australian government doesn't include them in this program. So sending goods to New Zealand doesn't count in the Export Market Development Grant, nor does it count for about 3 other countries on my reckoning that the Australian government has banned from receiving any benefits out of Australia. I'm sure you know who they are. Okay, so Tier 3 applicants must be targeting one or more of the key markets listed by Austrade. And there they are: Bangladesh, Brunei, India, Singapore, Cambodia, Italy, Taiwan, Canada, Japan, Thailand, China, Laos, Timor-Leste, Fiji, Malaysia, United Arab Emirates, France, Netherlands, United Kingdom, Germany, Papua New Guinea, United States, Hong Kong, Philippines, and Vietnam. Yeah, there's some big countries there. There's some countries that I thought Australia had very strong export sales to. But obviously the government and Austrade have decided that we can sell more to them. And they're setting up the grant program in such a way that it's targeting those countries. So that's what you need to make sure your clients understand if they're going to be a Tier 3 applicant. Now let's look at the eligible products. Grant funds must be used for promotional activities to market eligible products in foreign countries, and also the training activities to develop skills in export marketing for Tier 1 applicants is also part of the eligible products definition. Now, they've got to be substantially Australian origin and be goods, services, events, intellectual property, know-how, and software. Now, the definition of what's substantially Australian origin is too detailed to be presenting in an overview webinar. It's in our material. You can read it and you can look at the guidelines. And if you've got any questions, you can contact us and I'll try and see if I can decipher some of what these things actually do mean. But it's there. They're the products. And for eligible services, they have to be substantially Australian origin, and there's 2 sections of them: eligible tourism services and eligible services other than tourism. So these are businesses located in Australia who are targeting some of their operations at overseas residents and presumably therefore spending money to promote, maybe undertaking tours, maybe bringing foreign buyers into Australia so they can see what's the offering. And there can be a lot of items, as we'll see in a moment. So eligible tourism services could include businesses that handle transport for foreign persons getting around Australia, passenger transport by water or air, overnight accommodation, tours, paid admission to a place that has one or more outstanding natural features or is of historical interest, a park, a wildlife sanctuary, a museum, art gallery, or craft centre. So you got any clients in those categories? Have you thought about asking them whether they're spending money trying to attract overseas tourists to come and see their services? Or do they not know about it? And they say, wow, it's a light bulb moment. That's great. We could do that. We could spend some money and know the government's going to pay us half of it for us. So the eligible tourism services, they're going to be supplied in Australia to foreign persons. They could be at a place, the main purpose of which is to provide a venue and associated facilities for meetings, conventions, and exhibitions. The services of a restaurant or cafe. It could be a licensed casino. So it's fairly wide. Just need to think about it and talk to your clients. Now, eligible services other than tourism is a bit different. So these assets must be used to make the services ready for sale or supply, are mainly or substantially based in Australia. The activities resulting in the services are being ready for sale or supply are mainly or substantially carried on in Australia. I haven't actually come across any of these eligible services that are that are not tourism services in the past. Maybe you can think of some. Could have some clients. Send them a newsletter and follow them up on it. And then there's some more information. There could be trade shows held in Australia. They're eligible. So trade shows, as long as there's foreign buyers going to them. Could be an online event, maybe as long as it's provided by an Australian person. There must be a substantial portion of international buyers at the event. So if your client's going to try to claim this expenditure, they need to make sure there's a significant number of international buyers. Now let's turn to eligible expenses. We've gone through who can apply, what the limits are, what the minimum turnover is, what the maximum turnover is, what the goods and services are. Now, what's all this about? What can they claim? They can't claim all their operating expenses. So they're eligible where they're in respect of promotional activities taken during the period of the grant agreement. So they sign on with Australia for a grant agreement. And there's a designated connection. You know, we've already mentioned if it's a tier 1 grantee, they can get reimbursed for 50% of the cost of their training. So you have to submit budgets of these eligible expenses, and that's what they get their approval on. And they're going to spend the money in the financial year that they've applied for, and the services must be rendered. So they can't prepay into the following year and get the services the following year. They won't accept that. I'm not quite sure why, but they won't. So let's look at some of the eligible expenses. Maintaining a representative in a foreign country for more than 6 months. And if it's going to cost more than $30,000, there has to be signed agreements. I think there probably should have been signed agreements in any case. Short trips in a foreign country, up to 21 days, continuous travel. For travel between countries, only economy airfares are claimable. And there's a fixed daily rate of $350 per day that can be applied for the time that's been spent overseas on business. Consultants who are engaging consultants to undertake either research into the market in a foreign country or promotional activities to market the applicant in that country. That can be claimed. And again, if it's going to go over $30,000, there needs to be an agreement which may be demanded by Austrade, and on my doings with Austrade, they'll probably require it. So you should make sure you've got it. Your client can bring foreign buyers to Australia for up to 21 days for travel around Australia to view what's on offer. But there are others as well. There's soliciting for business in foreign countries. That's going overseas and soliciting. Sending free samples up to a value of $15,000 for the expenses, as long as it is a sample. Not a boomerang. They don't like it, they send it back. It's got to be a sample that's basically a gift to that overseas entity. Promotional and advertising material. The obtaining of intellectual property rights. There's a fair bit of material written on that in the system, and the export training activities for tier 1 applicants that we've talked about a couple of times. So applications for this grant, we have to complete the pre-program planning and requirements, ensure that the applicant is ready to export. Tier 1 applicants have to go through their export readiness training, and then we've got to complete the online grant application form. Got to enclose the necessary documents and submit the application online. So the necessary documents include 2 years financial accounts, some details of past activities, statements as to what export sales have been. And here we got them here. 2 years of financial statements, evidence of capacity to spend that minimum of $20,000, evidence of compliance with taxation laws over the previous 2 income years. Every year with this export market development grant, it is getting tougher and tighter to make sure you're going to be acceptable, or your client is. Tier 1 clients must provide evidence of export readiness. Tier 2 and 3 must provide evidence of export sales. And service product eligibility submission must be provided by all SMEs with services other than tourism. They need to clearly identify what are the services that they're providing to foreign residents. The plan to market document outlining how the applicant plans to undertake new marketing and promotional expenses. And remember, this cannot be a copy of someone else's. It has to be thought through, preferably identifying particular events that that someone from the business is going to attend to market and present, not just a quick document that's sorted out in 10 minutes. The grant agreement will be sent to your client if Austrade's accepted, and it spells out what the funding is going to be, what it's going to be for, and how Austrade will make those payments. Yes, they do make progressive payments, but they probably require a milestone report every time they make a payment, which is not unfair of them, I don't think. The grant agreement, they must be signed within 21 days. Remember, there could be a queue of people who at one stage have missed out. So if people do not respond promptly when the grant offer is made by Austrade, they could be withdrawn from an offer by Austrade, who then offer that money to someone else. So please stress that on your clients, that they need to react and sign these documents fairly quick, and they've got very little chance of being able to sign any of the, to change any of the grant agreement. The federal government are pretty tough on these things. For 12 years, I was involved in the COMET program, commercializing emerging technology. I had a few people that wanted to change the wording. The wording was about an 85-page document, and the attitude from Oz Industry was, that's the agreement. If your client doesn't want to sign it, we'll find someone else that wants that money. So you need to bear that in mind. The grant payments will make payments direct to the applicant's nominated bank account. There's no way they'll make any extra payments, because by the time the payments are going through, there's virtually no money left. They've allocated it all. One of the reasons for that is there's not enough money being made available by the government. That's another issue. Get onto your local member of parliament and have a whinge and get them to increase that. But all that Oz Industry can do, all that Austrade can do is implement the rules. So we talked about milestone payments. So I've been asked by a few of our subscribers, what sort of fees do you think are applicable to the Export Market Development Grant? Well, I've looked at it from my experience as a professional accountant. I think the fees would be around $500 to $1,250 per client assignment. And if you've got 10 of these clients, probably a fair bit of fees for you. document it the same way. If your client is coming to you for these grant applications now and is going to be in tier 3 and they need your assistance, they can potentially earn $160,000 from the government. To get it, they're going to have to make sure their application is done properly. And if they need your assistance to do that, well, obviously you charge them the fee. So if you need more information, please send me an email, peter@essbiztools.com.au, or give me a phone call, 07 4724 1118, and we will try to sort out whatever your questions are. Thank you for your support of ESS BizTools. And if you do have any questions on the Export Market Development Grant, please contact us. But please remember, this round opens on the 12th of November. I don't know how many applications are going to hit Austrade on that day, but they're gearing up that they're going to receive a lot. So if you're going to have clients putting these applications in and they need your input, well, they need it pretty soon. Stay safe. Have a great day. Goodbye. And I will talk to you again when we next present our next members training program. Goodbye.